Afternoon, everyone. We are here for teaching how to apply, how to prepare. We're here with Orlaith Tunney from Trinity College Dublin, works in the careers office there, and is giving us a bit of time to talk through that process. We do have a question and answer slot at the very end of the seminar, so if you do wish to participate, you can go to slido.com, have a quick login, and you are looking for seminar room 1202. If you can't access that, we can do it the old-fashioned way, but pass it over to Orla, who's going to talk through a few slides. I will make the slides available after the seminar. If you want to give me your email address, I'll personally email them over to you. So sit back and enjoy, and Orla's going to run through everything.
Thanks, Will. And I know I'm here for half an hour. Is there leeway? Yeah. Hello, can you hear me okay, folks? Can you hear me okay? Can you still hear me okay? If that changes, will you let me know? Or wave? Okay. So I'm just going to keep an eye on the time, because sometimes once I get talking, I don't stop. Okay, so you're very welcome to today's session, and it's a great time to be looking at getting into teaching. You can see from all the headlines that there's a shortage of teachers across the sector. So the demographic, the Irish population, are coming of age, coming into our primary, secondary schools, and for post-primary we're looking at population peaking in the next year to 3 years. So there's still going to be growth and more need for more teachers. So it's a good time to be thinking about getting into teaching. And today we're going to focus on the Republic of Ireland, because there's so much to say about teaching. So we're keeping it to the Republic of Ireland. And at the end, there will be resources for the UK, for the north of Ireland, for Scotland, Wales and England, where there's also a shortage of teachers, and they have a little bit more money in the UK to support teacher training. So just to be aware of that. But there's some other important things to take into consideration before considering training abroad. Okay? Now, a colleague of mine asked me yesterday, would I fill in for her today? So I've done some as much research as I could to bring myself up to speed, but I have worked for many years with the School of Education in Trinity, and I also work with arts and humanities students, many of whom are interested in getting into teaching. So we're going to focus today on post-primary and primary teaching, and we're going to look at why do you want to get into teaching? It's really the central question, because everything hinges on that in terms of you being happy in the career and going in as informed as you possibly can. Your application and your interview strategy and your ability to convince the course directors that you will make a good teacher depend on you having a really good answer to the why. We'll go through where and when, so it's very information heavy, folks. What I've done is I've brought together lots of sources of information and distilled it down. So there's a lot of text, but you'll have the information and you can go away after and do more in-depth research. Is that okay? So where to look, when to apply, how to apply, and then I've got an action plan. So you have a plan of action when you leave here today, so you know what you need to do next. And your career service, each university and institute or University of Technology has a career service. So it's your business to make contact with your career service, who are here to help you and support you. So take a minute. What are your 3 reasons to be a teacher? Why do you want to be a teacher? Now, some of you are sitting on your own, but I'd like you to turn to the person close to you and just let's take 1 minute, 30 seconds each. 3 reasons why you want to be a teacher. Come on, turn and tug. Make connections, folks. Let's make connections. Do you want to make? Do you want to connect? Tug. Okay, so we've got the juices flowing, we've got the conversation going, so it's helpful to start thinking and being clear why, and maybe other people are prompting you to think more so why you want to be a teacher. Is it June, July and August? Is that the reason you want to become a teacher? Not a great reason, but for some people it gives them the lifestyle to allow them to do other work, their own work. Like I've met some novelists and people who need quiet time to concentrate to do their own creative writing, and they feel that this is a good reason for them. But you need way more reasons than the summer holidays. So, you know, have you taken the right steps to ensure it's right for you? Some people feel they don't have any other choice, whatever subject matter they're doing. You need to know for sure that it's for you, because it is a commitment. You have such an impact on so many people. It's not something that you should just fall into. Do you understand the role of the teacher? You might think you do if you've been a student, but it's only when you step into the role of teacher, tutor, mentor that you actually live it, feel it, and understand the complexity of how different everybody is and how everybody learns differently. What skills and qualities are needed? It's so important, folks, that you have a really good understanding of this, and all of that feeds into your motivations. And do you have these skills and, you know, the motivations that you feel will bring you through a career of teaching? And if you don't have them, how can you get them? Okay, so over the next month or year, you can look at getting some experience to help develop your skills or understand the role better. So volunteering is a great way to start. Now, many of you are already volunteering with, for example, St. Vincent de Paul on an autism project. You know, there's lots of things I know a lot of you are probably doing. Brilliant. If you're not, do some of that. Observing. Really useful to observe a classroom. Ideally two. Ideally, maybe a private, prestigious school, and maybe a DESH or a low socioeconomic area. So you're really getting the diversity, and it helps you think about the issues, the problems that teachers are facing. Being curious and communicative are core. Excellent verbal communication, and all of you got roped in straight away. So that's a really good start. You want to engage with each other, which you will be doing as a teacher. You need to be reflective, and that's why getting into the classroom or thinking about your own teaching, you might be coaching a sports team, just reflecting on what works, doesn't work. All of that is helping you figure out, is this for me or actually not? Being responsive, being present to yourself and to the class. And I'm going to take a breath so I can be more present to you here today. And, being motivated by caring about others' well-being, feeling you have a contribution to make. So these are some of the things that you need to think about. Garda vetting is another one. When you're working with young people, you need to consider that also. So the Teaching Council is the organisation in Ireland that essentially regulates teaching in this country. So anything you do as a teacher, they determine. It's a little bit, you might say it's a little bit boring, but you have to know about it, right? Because it's the legal framework on which the education system in Ireland is based in this body, the Teaching Council. They follow the Teaching Act, which was created, 20 years ago or so. So the Teaching Council have a very helpful website in terms of teacher registration and teacher education. And essentially the Teaching Council states that to teach, you need to have, for full registration, so you can be paid by the government, you need to have a degree, a professional master's in education, PME, and then you pass, once you start working, your probation and your induction. And your induction is there to support you as a new teacher. So the professional master's in education is a two-year full-time program, and it is there to support you to be reflective, engage in critical inquiry, that you're research informed and evidence based in how you teach. There's a placement obviously in the schools, and for the primary teachers there's also more Gaeltacht involved. For the post-primary, when you're applying for your PME, your Professional Masters in Education, you need to complete a subject self-declaration form, and I'm going to say a little bit about that later. And there's also further education. So for people who are interested in working in, post-leaving certificate courses with adult education, you can do a 1-year qualification full-time or 2-year part-time. It's less competitive to get in, and you can still get your Teaching Council registration. So Teaching Council registration is what I'm saying here. If you go away and do your teacher qualification somewhere else and you want to come home or back to Ireland, you need to make sure that you are meeting the Teaching Council requirements. That's the most important thing I can really say today. So your decisions as a teacher, you need to make sure you know what the Teaching Council wants. Okay, we're going to fly through this. Post-primary, you can do it in all of these institutions: Trinity College Dublin, the NUI colleges, the National Universities of Ireland, that's a group of universities, UL, and then there's a few others as well. DCU is good for evening, their teaching is in the evening, I think it's usually a Tuesday, Wednesday. And then if you want blended learning, Hibernia is a really good one. Because there's so many universities using this in the NUI, and they have a common application process, it's not very user-friendly, but it's pack.ie, okay? And it has really useful link to frequently asked questions. Anything you want to know about post-primary applications, go to that page. And that's also where you apply. When the applications typically will open in the next month or two, and you would then start your course next September, and the closing dates vary. So you just need to see where you want to study and then keep an eye on their closing dates. But most are from January 2023. So I'd say get ready to have your applications in by December, so that you're sorted. So again, looking at the NUI colleges, so these ones here, the National University of Ireland, which is a host of different universities, it's based on a points system. So it's cut and dry. It's a little bit like the CAO, the Central Application Office, for students coming into university. So the points are calculated on 3 bases. The most recent completed year. So if you spent a year abroad on Erasmus, you need to use the previous year for your results. So basically, so your results are really important. They're the most important thing are your grades. So the higher your grades, the more points you will get. Any other qualifications, if you have a music certificate, if you've got a football coach diploma, whatever it might be, you get points for that. Any paid relevant work experience. So again, full-time for 2 years, 5 years, depending on the length, you get more points. Okay? Look closely at the documentation to see what they recognize and what they don't. Trinity, for example, we do accept unpaid work experience, but they don't in the NUI colleges. Okay? So for the NUI colleges, it's points, cut and dry, no discussion. For Trinity, UL and Hibernia, there is an application form and an interview, and the interview is really important in Trinity, and if people want to know more about that, they can talk to me about that later, but essentially we care about the individual being a good fit for the profession, and points will only bring you so far. That human connection, how it is that you communicate, is critical. So again, there's variety within each of the universities. So the applications, what you need to have on your desk ready to go, you need your results transcripts. You get that from the registry office in your university. Evidence of previous qualifications, so that you can show I do have what I say I have. Evidence of relevant experience. So that could be a reference from an employer, or it might be your tax to say that you actually did get paid. The subject self-declaration form. So that is essentially where you show that you have looked at the teaching council subject requirements. So if you're going to teach maths, English, Spanish, Irish, for each of those leaving certificate subjects, the teaching council have this long document where you can go straight to your subject and you can see, and it tells you what you need to have covered in your degree so that you meet the requirements of the council to teach that subject. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's basically the self-declaration form. You say, I have completed these modules, and references might be required. A CV for Trinity, a CV is required, but it's not to get the place on the course. It's that Trinity can then reach out to placement schools and say, these are the people who are coming in this year, would you take them for placement? Do you understand? So if you didn't do so well in your leaving cert, leave it off your CV, okay? So, and again, your career service is here to support you with this. And you might, Trinity used to have a personal statement, I'm not sure if they still do. Have a look when it goes live this year to see. And interview, as I said, is also part of the process. For Trinity, 15-20 minute interview with 2 to 3 people. If you're going to apply for language teaching, it's likely that the interview will be partially in the language that you hope to teach. So Italian, French, German, Irish, whatever. So be ready for that. So research, find out about the work of a teacher. So what motivates you? So these are essentially, the questions are basically revolve around those 3 points. The questions at interview, and also for some of the application forms. What is it that motivates you? Why do you want to become a teacher? What's your awareness of the role of teacher? So talk about a class that you did give or you would give. Talk about a time when you taught something but actually the students didn't learn what you thought you had taught. What would you do? If there was bullying in the classroom, bullying outside on the way to school, how would you deal with that? 2 different scenarios, okay? So think about what is the role of the teacher? And then the subject, your subject, how does it fit within the context of the whole curriculum that the students are experiencing? So you can see how you can bring to bear your own interests, whether it's singing, music, coding, whatever it might be, how can you bring that into the classroom? Also, know about the curriculum. The curriculum is available. Know your subject curriculum in advance. And again, teaching council, back to them. They are the people who decide on what's needed. So moving now on to primary teaching. So there is a whole host of colleges that you can learn to train as a primary school teacher. These are all full-time. And then again, Hibernia offer a blended teaching training. And they've got 2 intakes, and they're again a little bit different to the other colleges, where they have 1 interview for the course, which includes the oral Irish. Okay, so they're the exception. So I'm going to speak about these colleges, okay, because they all have a similar process. Okay, so you need to make sure that you meet the eligibility criteria for Irish, English and Maths. If you don't meet the criteria, you need to get it. And you can top up, but you need to make sure that you have the qualifications by July before the September that you start. Are you with me? So you then need to sit an oral Irish test. You then, if you get 65% in that oral Irish test, you can then apply to actually for a place on one of the courses, and then you are called for interview. So far so good? Yeah. Okay, so these are the requirements. You need to have the Irish Leaving Certificate Higher 4 in Irish. You need to have English Leaving Certificate Ordinary 4 or higher 7, and Maths Leaving Certificate Ordinary 4 or higher 7. It's like cut and dry, there's no negotiation. If you don't have them, there is a page full of possibilities of how you can get those subjects in another way. And just giving you an example for Irish, the Teastas Orpach na Gaeilge, TEG for short, the B2 exam, and Maynooth University are really, just remember Maynooth University for Irish language, because they have a centre where you can learn Irish, and that's where all the testing happens as well. And if your maths isn't so strong, you can complete one of the QQI, the Quality and Qualifications Ireland, a module. You have the number there. And that module you can access online through Night School. It's one possibility. And they offer the maths throughout the year. So basically, we're now moving on to the application. So you have to meet these requirements to teach in primary school. As part of the application process, as I said on the previous slide, you need to get the Irish oral exam. And they call it Teastas Orpach na Gaeilge TEG B1. And again, you go back to that centre in Maynooth University. That's where all the information is. And they're going to open in the next month for people to actually sit that exam. Closing date is January, and you need to get 65% if you want to be called for interview. And the higher you do, the better you do in that Irish oral, the more points you get towards you eventually getting a place on the programme. So the action plan. Observation is critical for primary teaching. I would say for all of them, but especially for primary teaching. Get into a school and observe. See what's happening, and note things like the different teaching styles that you're observing, the technology that's being used or not used. Ashtair is the name, the Irish word for the curriculum for the early years. You need to know what that is. Increasingly, teachers are using teaching stations to teach the little ones. You need to know a little bit about that and have an opinion on it. Learning support and provision for students with additional needs. So these are the kinds of things that you need to think about and have opinions on to be able to articulate. So the application and selection, you need your result transcripts again, you need your leaving certificate, and examinations.ie if you've lost it. I don't know, got thrown out with another box of things when you're doing a clear out. You can pay a small sum to get your leaving cert. You might need references. You will need to complete an application form and an interview. Your career service is here to help you with that. So be sure to ask for help if you need it. And this could be helpful for those of you thinking of going for the primary teaching interview. And all of this is publicly available on the website. I've given you the link just in case, because some of it's hard to find. But essentially, for the primary teaching interview, you're looking at around, 15, 20 minutes. And these are the kinds of questions that you will be asked at the interview. So they're interested in your suitability to teach, your motivation, your interpersonal skills, your communication, your talents, evidence of leadership, and relevant experience. So everything that we've been speaking about in the last 20 minutes or so will be brought to bear, as I said at the beginning, in the interview. Okay? So that's just to help you prepare that the questions that they ask will be based on these competencies. Okay? So further education, very briefly, these are the list of institutions where you can study, and the entry requirements vary because you could be, a teacher of technology, a teacher of woodwork, a teacher of communication studies. So it's all quite different. So the entry requirement varies. Have a look at the individual institution and see what they look for. And as I said at the beginning, this particular qualification is interesting because it gives you can qualify in 1 year, you get your teaching council registration number, which actually allows you technically to teach. So, and depending on your subject area and your interests, if you're interested in working with people who are maybe finding education difficult, the adult population, long-term unemployed, depending on your interests, this could be a really interesting pathway into education that you might not have thought about. This is the key website with all the detail. It's the the Department of Education of Ireland, and their homepage has these 16 items. And everything I've talked to you today about, you can access through 1 and 2. So into primary teaching, and it'll bring you into the Oral Irish, etc. Okay? Go into the post-primary school teaching, it'll bring you into the links that will eventually bring you into the points, for example, to the NUI colleges. And there's the salary scale. So for teachers, you're looking at maybe 38,000 starting, and then top of the scale 72,000. And obviously there's additional payments depending on other things, whether you have other qualifications, your length of experience, and whether you take on more responsibility, such as vice principal, principal, for example. Okay? And there's lots, like Migrant Teacher Project is there. There's just loads and loads of information linking you into the curriculum as well, the different curricula. So for the UK, there is money in the UK. They are willing to pay you. If you have modern languages, maths, physics, there's quite a lot of money, up to 20,000 sterling, to give you to train to teach. It's around 9 grand for the fees in the UK. In Ireland, for the 2 years, you're looking at around 15 grand over the 2 years. So it can be worth looking at the UK. I don't want to send you there, but it is worth looking at it. But coming back to what we said at the beginning, if you want to come back to Ireland to teach, you need to jump through every hoop that the Teaching Council puts in your way. They don't make life easy for you. So be warned. If you want to go to the UK, think about Edge Hill in Liverpool, and think about Twickenham, St Mary's Twickenham in London. So there are 2 universities that recruit a lot from Ireland, and they have a relationship with the Teaching Council. They've actually done some research to see how they can help Irish graduates come back to Ireland. Do you understand? I'm not recommending them, but I'm saying if you want to start somewhere, I'd start with those 2 universities. Twickenham, St Mary's in Twickenham, and Edge Hill, Liverpool. So there are 2 resources to help you find out more about the bursaries I was talking about the entry requirements for post-primary and primary. Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes left, so I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, will you?
Thanks, Orla. We haven't received any questions yet through Slido. Put your hand up if you do have a question. A quick point on the resources, however, is that I did say if you give me your email address, I'll make sure you have the slides. If you register to gradireland.com and keep an eye on the Grad Ireland events page, for any seminar you attend today, all the slides will be up there, and Orla will be able to provide those to myself, and I'll make sure those are live, so no need to give myself your email. There is no questions on Slido. Does anyone have a question the old-fashioned way? I have a very quick question, Orla, if I can jump in. So for some teachers, it is vocational. They're born to be teachers. It's their life and blood. For somebody who doesn't see it as a vocation, but it is a career choice, how would you tip your toe in the water at an undergraduate level of being a teacher? How would you try and test the water there?
Great question, Conor, and I alluded to it there earlier, looking at something like Vincent de Paul, doing some volunteering with them. Doing some, like Trinity, we have a mentoring program where students mentor other students, is a fantastic way to also, just build up the experience of working with other people. That's on a one-to-one. Anybody here coaching or in sport? Anybody? So coaching teams, whether it's GAA, hockey, even teaching dancing, music, if you, conducting an orchestra, like all of those are teaching related. So they would be practical ways. And also, just because digital is so important, getting a little bit of coding yourself would be a really good idea. With the languages, anything you can do to promote and develop your languages, whether ideally, as part of the Leaving Certificate curriculum, but with the diversity of our student population, just using your language in innovative ways and showing how you're using your language in your life, because that will also help enhance the culture of the school when you come into the school. What else could you do? It's really, it's a holistic picture. You bring your whole self into the classroom. It's not just your degree and your subject matter. And actually exposing yourself to different, types of people who are autistic, people who have a disability, people who, have health issues. Having those experiences sensitizes you to how different people need support and assistance. So in many ways, everything you do in your life potentially is relevant, but there's some that you can do as an undergrad or a postgrad to make the most of your university experience to help you get into teaching ultimately.
Perfect. Thanks, Orla. Any final questions, folks? All good. So I thank Orla for her time. A little bit of a round of applause. Well done. As I said, any resources you've seen here today, gradireland.com, please register. Grad Ireland events page as well for any other seminars that you want to attend. And thanks very much.